Hey, what's going on? Welcome into another episode of the Ask Level podcast. This one, episode number 54. Thanks to our friends at Cantex Roofing and Construction for bringing us the Ask Level podcast once again. Alongside Chris Level, I'm Choice Woodman. Level on the other side of another loss, unfortunately, but it is bye week as well. We'll get into both of those things as the Red Raiders fell to the Cougars at BYU. New unique atmosphere for Big 12 teams and both of us. We will get into that. There's a little basketball questions that a few people have as we inch closer to basketball season, which is right around the corner. We'll get into branding as some new news has dropped on that and a question on that as well. But first level, welcome in, and I'll let you just kind of take it where you want to from the trip to Provo, which was quite a unique one.
Well, I mean, I'd like to take it to Victory Town if that's where I want to
That'd be
take it.
nice.
I mean, yeah, that's right.
You got any magic
No,
powers? Go ahead.
I don't know. Yeah, frustrating, night, but it's a frustrating situation when you have to start a third string quarterback
Oh,
with really no other option behind him other than a skill player against a team with an unbelievable home environment like BYU had. And I just, and at some level, man, I mean, any level of football, it's very difficult. One, when you don't have good quarterback play,
mm-hmm.
but when you have a turnover prone quarterback play or turnover prone, in general, it's difficult. I mean, even if that's a 2-0 turnover, scenario against BYU, it would have been tough. But 5-0, it's like,
Yeah.
I mean, and yet this just shows you either you kind of kept hanging around or just how bad BYU is, and probably a combination of both. That it was still somewhat within striking distance. That you won the turnover. Excuse me, that BYU won the turnover battle 5-0, and we're just still, and including one of those being for a touchdown, and
Yeah.
they could never pull away from you because I just don't think they're very good. But you just weren't, you aren't either right now, and I think
Mhm.
that's fair to say. And I think you weren't good enough. Certainly, their 6th year experienced senior quarterback never made any mistakes. He never put his team in a position to make a mistake. And your true freshman, and I don't know, like, not being able to execute the handoff there. I think if you hand it to Taj on the 4th and 1, he walks into the end zone. I don't know, necessarily if what happened there, but mishandling back-to-back snaps on the mesh point is just the most basic of things on the zone read there, and it just cost you. It cost you really 14 points because I think you score a touchdown on one end and you gift them one on the other on the second one of those, and back-to-back snaps on offense,
Yeah.
and that doesn't even count the interceptions. And then, Miles Price, trying to make a play and just gets hit from behind. That ball gets knocked out. So just a maddening, very loud night in Provo is what it equaled.
Yeah. You got to experience it a little different than those of us in the booth because
Oh,
down
yeah.
there at field level, I mean, and that was, I gotta be honest, that's the loudest crowd I think I've heard, even from booth level, on the road in the Big 12 conference, and in the young time that I've been doing this. It seemed like it was just such a good football atmosphere. I mean, the views are one thing. It's amazing, a backdrop with that stadium. There's some arguments of teams that, like, Houston maybe shouldn't have been let into the Big 12, or really was Cincinnati ready to be a Power Five school. BYU seems to fit immediately as a Big 12 school, and what they do with the football program, at least.
Yeah, as far as environments, it's it held, I think, 63-5,
Mm-hmm.
okay, in there. It was sold out, and I their 63-5 is a lot louder than Oklahoma's 85 or whatever, and then
Yeah,
Texas is 100 in a lot of ways. There's a lot of, I don't know. I think that sometimes Oklahoma and Texas have this corporate kind of
for
feel
sure.
to it at times, where they're not just super passionate or like wild and crazy. I mean, these folks from BYU were extremely loud, and yeah, they were, and I think it rattled you a bit. I
It
do. I
seemed
think
like it.
there were some things that um were uncharacteristic. I mean, it doesn't help somebody like Jake Strong, who's got a million things rolling through his head and trying to avoid making mistakes, and it's just like a small mistake is amplified in that environment of a misfire or a little too much air under a ball, or
Hmm.
I thought you had it kind of handoff type deal,
Yeah,
and you can get away with some of that in high school and live to tell about it, but not at this level. And it's not his fault. I think he's got a lot ahead of him, but it's just unfortunate that he's been put in this position. Because these are the your quarterback room just looks very different than last year. Okay, in
yeah,
that you had three legitimate guys last year, and I think there's a pecking order this year, but Jake was nobody ever would have thought trying to put him in there in a meaningful game, but he started it, and he threw it 37 times, and this is what the hand you were dealt, unfortunately, with Brady Boyd back over there, just ready to back him up if needed and run some zone read and run some option or whatever they had drawn up for Brady Boyd, the receiver from South Lake Carroll. That was it. But the good news is on that front, Behren Morton will be back for TCU.
hmm
I think he was there in Provo and very engaged, and just I think feels a high level of frustration and responsibility here for the way this thing is going. And that's just kind of sometimes the way a quarterback feels. And so I'm glad that he'll be back, and Jake can continue to develop and learn and all that, while not getting thrown in the fire a bit.
yeah. I think that well, kind of staying with the offense. I've seen some reaction. I mean, kind of similar to last week of crucify the coordinator type of reaction. You score 14 points, but is that fair? I mean, I think there's some fairness to it. Last week, some.
I guess it's I mean, let's just but while we're picking out blame game here,
Uh huh.
yeah, I'm sure that it's the offensive coordinator's fault that your punt returner fumbles, that you can't execute a handoff. Guess what? They practice it all the time. I'm sure that's I mean, the
Yeah.
nine penalties. I'm sure that's the fault. The fact that you haven't had a takeaway of any kind on defense,
Yeah.
in or a meaningful takeaway in weeks. The fact that your rushing defense just got carved up by the worst rushing defense in the Power Five. This was the worst rushing defense in the Power Five at 65 yards a game. They go for a buck 50,
Yep.
including a 55 yarder on the opening drive. So we want to blame people, blame everybody.
Yeah. Sure. Sure.
It is maddening to me, and to be honest with you, it's just like people have an agenda, or you're just lazy and not paying attention if you want to single out one person here. This has been
I don't disagree at
yeah,
all. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know if
It's
you're if that's your mo or your target this week, then you're just not paying attention. Like you blame this one. There's so many. You outlined just about all of them, but if you're wanting to go offense, you're sitting there with a third string quarterback who has
hey,
played
run the ball more. They handed it to him 31 times at
31
three and a
times.
half yards a carry.
Exactly.
Hey,
Yeah,
I mean,
I don't know what else you're going to ask to do there.
why are we throwing it? Well, guess what? When you're down multiple scores here, and again, none of it's perfect. I'm not trying to say that that Zach or Tim or Joey, they're all that's part of what comes with the territory here. But trying to like point to one is like solely that is just
Oh,
it's asinine to me.
no, it's lazy.
It's like
Lazy is the right
comical.
word for it.
Yeah, it's like comical to me. I don't understand
No,
it,
I
but
mean, I brought the question up because I'm thinking, am I missing something here? Is
I
it
don't. Yeah,
fair? No, I just I don't understand it. Taj Brooks has what, the fifth or sixth most carries in the country at this point. Um,
Well, I think
the,
it's more. It's more now
after
because
31 last night.
I
Yeah.
mean, 31 for a buck 05. And then I think we've pointed this out. Taj is not the kind of running back that's going to take it and go. He's going to grind it out, which is
Yep.
what BYU made him do.
Yeah.
And it just, and again, he would have. I think he scored one touchdown. He would have gotten in the end zone on another one on a 4th and 1. Had the handoff been executed, but I don't care who you are, man. You're playing with a third string quarterback. I mean, all bets are off. But go show me all the other examples of third string quarterbacks going into
Whew.
hostile environments and getting it done. And I'm sure people can find some, but that's not the norm.
No.
Anyway, it's just but this is what happens when you lose. People start to point fingers and get frustrated with certain things. I just find it funny that the fingers are pointed certain ways and not others. I don't know, and
Sure.
I don't grasp that. Like, you're willing to point a finger,
Uh,
but
Level.
why not at certain things? I mean,
Part
you
of it
know,
is our conditioning to offense, right? I mean, our we've been conditioned to offense in Lubbock, Texas,
right.
and the general public too. It's not just Lubbock, Texas, but specifically here in Lubbock, it's been offense, offense, offense for 20 years.
Yep.
And that's all people know. Because again, no one's sitting there breaking down why the heck are we running a 3-4 defense against this? Or no one,
Right.
no one does that. No one
Yeah.
questions play calling on the defensive side of the football. That's not how it works. The video game mentality of offense and Lubbock, Texas, of hey, we had some great offense here for a long time. That's the deal. So the blame almost never goes to the defensive side of the football, which deserves a lot of it the last 2 weeks. Now it bowed up in the second half and was much better in the second half, like it has been a lot of the year. But still, the defense helped dig the hole you were in to begin with.
But I agree, and Tim and Joey both would be the
Sure, they
first
would.
ones to tell you it didn't bow up. We've got to be better. We're not making any plays that alter or change the
That's
game,
true.
like you did in Waco.
That's true.
Like, you can't get home. Keaton Slovis, he got hit sometimes, but he never. There was never anything where he chanced it. You never got the ball on the ground. I feel like when you float a throw, when one of your quarterbacks does, or a tipped pass, other people are just snagging them, and you're just not in a position to do those things right now.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's luck. Sometimes it's just. And I'm not trying to shift the blame. I think Zach would be the first one to tell you we've got to be better. I've got to figure out a way.
Right.
It's just, but at some point you have to be realistic too, because that's not an ideal situation for Jake Strong and your running game. I don't care how many people think that you have a really good running game. In some ways, it has worked, but it's been very average at times too, and this is just not necessarily what you're built to do.
Yeah.
You've allocated a lot of scholarships over the last 4 to 6 years on receivers and tight ends, some of which are hurt or ejected. In the case, as was the case for the Cougs with Jaden York, who was basically your backup tight end. So that removes all your 12 personnel type
Mm-hmm.
plays, and Baylor Cup playing through an injury. And again, nobody wants to hear that stuff. I get it. I just think it's convenient to, I don't know, pick one thing over the other. I don't really grasp that. But because they would all tell you it's 3-5 is unacceptable, that they've all got to be better. But I think, I don't know. I've talked, I guess, long enough on that deal. I don't really get that.
I'm Yeah, you're not going to get any argument from this side. All right, so along those lines, Kelly asks if Kitley is not back next season, who would be on your short list for OC? Is that even a yeah? Go ahead.
Well, yeah, I don't look, the when you start talking about staff changes, you don't ever rule out anything, whether it be somebody going, hey man, I'm going to go take this other gig, or hey, the head coach is like, hey man, I think we're going to make a change. I don't envision any of that, but I also know that I've been around this business a long time, and it was very rare for your most of your staff come back intact like it did last year, with the only change really being Emmett Jones, and then switching to Emmett Jones going to Oklahoma, and then Juice Johnson coming from Baylor was really your only thing.
Yeah.
Um, and Zach was offered a lot of money from Mississippi State, turned it down. I think before he got this job, he was offered a lot of money by University of Miami, by Nebraska, a
Right.
variety of others, but this is where he wanted to be. I don't envision any change, and the thing is like you start being careful what you wish for, because you've got some good offensive skill that's committed to this staff. You start changing it up, and you don't know where that goes. And so, but I don't. I'm not going to sit here and give you some list on a job that's full right now, because I wouldn't even begin
Sure.
to know. I mean, heck, a lot of the names that I would have suggested to you a year ago, they're all have head jobs, and
Yeah,
and who knows what will happen because the coaching industry is just wild. I mean,
it
right?
is. It is.
You never know with stuff, but I just don't envision that at all. I mean, give my man a healthy QB, man. That's what I would ask for.
That would help.
I hope that he can go get some portal offensive linemen and some portal tight ends, and try to get beef up because they just haven't been as good as you needed them to be up front. But a lot of it is because they've been dinged up, and then the quarterbacks have all been
Yeah.
dinged up too. But again, that's my opinion. You're allowed to have yours. Choice, you're allowed to have yours, and that's what makes this stuff fun. And we're all passionate about it, and I get it. But
Here we are.
that's how I would answer that question, I guess.
Josh asks, considering how many quarterback injuries and ankle snaps, I think that's talking about not snapping of the ankle, but snaps from the center down around the ankles for the quarterback. Considering those things and the rec timing and vision, why no media scrutiny? Seem to blame everyone else. So I think that's asking why the offensive line isn't getting more scrutiny. Is
Oh, I think they've been scrutinized plenty. I know internally they've been scrutinized a lot.
yeah,
I think the low snaps have been a problem. I think Rusty was playing through an injury last night. I think that Joey McGuire indicated that there was almost a change made even mid series with a switch up at center. But you're right. No matter what offense you're trying to run, the low snaps throw off all the timing of everything, no matter what you're trying to do.
sure.
Whether it's a pass play, whether it's a running play, whatever, it screws it all up when the snap is low and the quarterback has to go down and then back up, or
Yep.
pick it up or fumble around with it. It just those milliseconds to seconds mean everything in the timing sense, because sometimes people are not real open, but it just takes a brief window to get, but then that's gone whenever you're just off a bit with your timing. So yeah, I think the offensive line, and again, Hamby would tell you the same thing. Hamby would say, and I think they'll have some tough conversations with some people on the roster that are this next wave
Mm-hmm.
of offensive linemen that may or may not be here in
Right.
a couple of months. I mean, because that position's got it. I mean, Joey will be the first one to tell you we will win or lose games up front. And where did you get your ass kicked versus BYU? Up front on both sides. Okay. Where did you get the same thing versus Kansas State? Up front on both sides. Where did you do the damage in Waco? Up front on both sides. You wore them out.
Yep.
And that's kind of how these games are going. But until you get better, more big people that are legit, then I think it's and you've got to have some semblance of quarterback play, man. We could talk about running game, play
Yeah.
calls, special teams, defense, all that till we're blue in the face. But until you get sustainable, a level of quarterback play, because look around the league. Why is Oklahoma ultimately, like tops right now? Because they have the best quarterback in the league statistically and otherwise. I mean, he was like
Agreed.
the preseason, all Big 12 guy, hasn't missed a game. Oklahoma State all of a sudden started turning around, shockingly enough, with Alan Bowman, but it
Yeah.
was after they figured out, okay, Bowman's our guy, leave him in there. He hasn't missed any time. You look at the West Virginia issues when Garrett Green kind of went out, and it was a tenuous for them. You look, there's some questions about Texas right now. How serious is the injury to Quinn Ewers? and all of a sudden all bets are off with them if that is indeed serious. So you just go on. I mean, Central Florida is like hit the skids because John Rice Plumlee was out for a period of time. He comes back, they take Oklahoma to the wire, and so you've got to get this thing figured out. And but it's just, what is it, 3 out of the last 3 years and 4 of the last 5 when you started 3 different guys under center, and it's
Yeah,
just
and you've had like 6 or 7 straight seasons where guys have taken meaningful snaps, 3 different quarterbacks. So
yeah,
it's
yeah,
that's not a normal thing for.
tough to win that way, man.
It
You
isn't.
can't do it.
Yeah, yeah. So okay, we've got the bye week. So we've got another podcast before our next game coming up. So we'll preview TCU then and kind of shift focus there. But we've got a few other questions, football and otherwise, that I want to get to before we close this thing down. This one is a football question. It says, does Taj have any eligibility left? That's from the Zach Man on YouTube.
Yes. Do I think he'll use it? No.
Okay, so you think running backs? Yeah, it's a mileage thing for those guys, right? I mean, especially as many miles as Taj is putting on, the more he does, the more negative it looks for NFL teams, right?
Yep.
So yeah, so he does have 1 year left, right? Is that correct? And he could take it, but yeah, I kind of agree with you on that. Here's one. Can you give us a review on the Cougartails? Those were.
Hope everybody realizes this question was asked. We didn't bring this up on their own. Yeah, they were phenomenal. That's their big deal in BYU. It was a BYU dining services back in like '03. Like had this deal to where like we need to come up with something that is a signature concession item that we can call our own. They talked about a variety of different things back 20 years ago. I mean, a specific kind of hot dog, I think a certain kind of nachos.
Right.
And this was also one of the deals. It's like an 18-inch long, long john. It's like just a long
Yeah.
donut with this maple icing on it. It's got special packaging and all that. They actually introduced it in '04, and
Mm-hmm.
it's made in-house. It's like a BYU dining services like item, right?
Yeah.
And they released it and it kind of fizzled. It didn't catch on, and they made a few tweaks and enhanced the packaging of it and figured out a way to do it, and then they re-released it in 2006. It has stuck since. They sell on average between 8 to 9,000 of these things for every home game.
Crazy.
It is crazy, and it's kind of a thing. It's just like
Yeah.
what they do. They're proud of it. You can only get them at BYU athletic events. I don't think even at every athletic event, but I think football and basketball maybe. Anyways, but yeah, they were phenomenal, and I think the broadcast booth was brought. You guys were introduced
Yeah.
to these bad boys. I mean, who doesn't like a donut, right?
That's right.
But
Yeah.
yeah, that's right.
Now, and last night they put the bacon on for the homecoming, which there's moments where you learn something about someone and it makes you judge them completely. Level chose the no bacon route, and I
I
judged you
don't.
pretty hard for that.
I do enjoy the bacon. I had some for breakfast on that very morning. I just
Okay.
don't.
Okay.
I don't typically. I'm not a dip my bacon in syrup guy. I don't enjoy the salty sweet thing like in that way,
Oh,
like other
okay.
people would. Like if I want a donut, that's what I want. I don't want bacon on it. If want to have bacon, I'll have it off to the side. I don't
Okay.
like the
Okay.
combination of it. And again, I'm probably different. Plus, they had given us these sandwiches after the game, which also had bacon on it.
That's true.
You had
That's true.
not, yeah, okay. So that's also, I was like, yeah, I just don't want that. I want just the plain one. I want to have it in its purest form. How about that?
Yeah. Try it how it's always
Yes,
done.
yeah, there
Okay.
you go. Not some
Fair
tricked
enough.
up version. Plus, I'm not. It's not
Tricked out
homecoming for
version.
me, man.
That's true. Yeah, it wasn't
Yeah,
wasn't a good homecoming for
yeah.
the Red Raider fans. All right. This question, this one is part two from Kelly on Twitter. I can pull it back up. Just basically asking. There was a couple of different questions. We'll combine them both, but asking about Texas Tech basketball and the outlook for the season.
Well, we're picked by the media to finish eighth. I think that's actually a fair a fair prognostication. I think people again around the sport have a very high opinion of Grant. I think people also realize you lost some talent off of last year's roster, and then what did you replace it with? And again, I'm not talking about even some of your transfers. I mean, like, well, Kevin O'Banner graduating, and
Yeah,
so
yeah,
you don't have anything closely resembling an all conference player. It's very similar actually to the football conversation we had prior to the season,
yeah,
in that who's your guy. What do you do at the end of a shot clock? What do you do when somebody goes on an 8-0, 10-0 run to get it stopped? Who bails you out? Who hits a big shot on the road? All these things. But you will be. I think your identity needs to be. I think Grant's trying to tell everybody that'll listen. We are very athletic. We will play much faster than what people saw us play at North Texas. The roster and the league and all that dictated that. And they won plenty of road games and neutral site games and all those things. I think in this league, they'll look to run a bit more. I think Dave Smart gets a lot of the credit or the. I think with that, there's doing a lot of fast paced. Because Dave Smart is actually operated on he's the one of the main assistant coaches,
hmm,
the guy that came from Canada, very experienced. I mean, he's always operated on a 24-second shot clock up in Canada.
right.
And so I think that he's used to, some simple but quick sets that get you into things and keep the game flowing and moving and all those things. And so I think that that'll be something that people may be, I don't know, pleasantly surprised by. But yeah, on paper, this is, I guess, my realistic expectation here would be. I think it's realistic to make it to the NCAA tournament. I think
Yeah,
anything past that, you're setting yourself up for like I just don't think anybody realizes how good this league is. But you're not guaranteed an NCAA tournament bid. This isn't like an NCAA tournament bid or bust type scenario. I mean, you're gonna have to work hard, and you're gonna have some things break right for you, and some development, and some guys maybe be a bit better than you would think to make it to that point. But that's the goal, clearly.
you know who does realize that how difficult this league is Kelvin Sampson. Did you see his comments on the Big 12 and the tough dog park that it is? And he says, "I'm looking around the room. They had a coaches meeting. I'm looking around the room, and normally you have a little schnauzer over here, a Chihuahua, and it's full of German shepherds. Like every single coach in this league, I mean, is a German shepherd, or oh, there's a Rottweiler over there." I thought that was, I mean, however you feel about Kelvin Sampson, I think that
I
was a
thought it
good way to
was.
describe this
I
league.
agree. I was talking to somebody, and Choice. I think you kind of heard this conversation, but I was talking to somebody in Provo about their basketball program.
Yeah,
Somebody with direct knowledge of it, and I think they kind of are like, oh, this may be because I think they're
sure.
in BYU terms they're fairly young, and I think that after they had gone to Big 12 Media Day settings, I think they came away from it going, wow, there's some dudes with legit size
Yeah,
and all that. And like I see it on a nightly basis. This is a grown man's league. And what I still don't know what the thinking was at all by signing a whole giant freshman class last year and then
I know.
trying to and again part of that was Demorion Williams and Kerwin Walton just couldn't
Sure.
uh, help like you thought, and so some of these freshmen got pushed into duty. But you're not winning in this league with true freshmen, man. I
Right.
mean, forget about it. I
No,
don't care if they are 5-1 and duns. Forget about it. I mean, it's curtains. It just is not a recipe for success unless something were to drastically change in this league. But right now, everybody is old. They are staying old. They're looking to maintain their age. That there are the measurables are off the charts every time you show up. I think UCF and BYU and Cincinnati will all have a rude awakening. Houston even will. They're built for it a bit better, but even then, they're not really a
yeah.
part of this grind. Their conference season is there's some Gonzaga, type scenarios there
Hmm.
with them not really being tested in the conference
Right.
season. So they're gonna take some licks on the old chin quite a bit
Yep,
because it's till you show up on a Wednesday night in Ames, Iowa, in front of 16,000 people
exactly.
with a fairly average Iowa State team, and the officials get influenced a bit, and Iowa State's desperate for a win, and they
It's,
beat you by what was it? What was it last year? By 30 points? Was it like
yeah,
82-51 or something?
pretty rough. Yeah,
Oh,
it's a
well,
little little different than
it wasn't
shown.
pretty rough.
Yeah.
It was, yeah, you could take the pretty and
Okay.
turn it
Very much
sideways.
rough.
Okay, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little different than showing up to on a Tuesday night to Tulane in front of a couple of thousand people for sure. So yeah, that's true. I want to get to this last question, but of course, basketball. You can hear every Texas Tech basketball game on Double T 97.3. That season tips off on November 8th against A&M Commerce, and actually later this week they'll have the anybody's in the Dallas area in
Denton.
Denton, they'll have the exhibition against Texas A&M there on Saturday of this week. Is that correct? I think it's Saturday.
Oh yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
right.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So Saturday of this week,
And it's open
Tech
to the
and A&M.
public. You can go
Yep.
buy tickets, and
I think
I
they're
think
fairly
it may
cheap.
be a part of a doubleheader, but
Okay.
I think it's for some charity. I think there may be another
Yeah.
game being played there. I think don't get
Yeah.
me the
Well,
line here
no,
on
it's for
who else
charity.
is.
So
Yeah, but yeah, I think it's North Texas may be involved in a game as well. But yeah, it's for charity, and I think it's probably fun for Coach McCaslin to go back a little
sure.
bit, play, rep the his new gig and all that, pay homage to the where he came from, and all those things. I think it'd be, and then obviously good for charity as well. But
Yeah.
they've already scrimmaged UTEP, beat those guys. I've seen it reported by 10. I've heard that they won by 5. Either way, they won. I even was told that the Joe Golding, the UTEP head coach, was teed up and said
You
exhibition
can do
game.
that, huh?
I guess so.
I
I
didn't
was
know
like,
that was a
whoa,
thing.
that's a bit wild to me.
I mean, I guess they
Um,
use real refs and all that, so that's
yeah, that's
interesting.
right. That's right. So, yeah. And speaking of officiating, man, one of the last thoughts is
Yeah.
not why Texas Tech lost. And this isn't Texas Tech specific as it relates to football. My wish for Brett Yormark, with all the things that are going on, is that the officiating becomes better because right now it's too. It's like, I mean, I swear to you that the WWE wrestling officials are better, and they've got an IFB, and somebody's telling them, "Hey, purposely don't look at the bad guy poking the other guy in the eye."
Uh-huh.
Okay, it's scripted, it's TV. Some of the game management and the way that they, not just the calls that they miss, but just some of the communication, some of the just total blatant for like not understanding what's supposed to go on here or just head in the sand is embarrassing. And
Agreed.
so I don't know what you do about it. I would just say the crew in Provo, Utah was as bad as I've seen in a long time, and that is
Hmm.
saying a mouthful. And it's not that Texas Tech didn't commit penalties. There were some that they did commit, but just the way that they are organized or
Hmm.
lack thereof, it's tough to watch. And the Big 12 deserves better. There's too many people that have a lot on the line here for it to be that poor. And I hope Brett Yormark does something about it. Like the whole thing. I
Yeah.
think there was some things that went on in the Houston Texas game at the very end of that one. I mean, Dana Holgerson is basically saying, I don't know what's reviewed and what I'm allowed to challenge. They tell me they've reviewed it. How do I even know? We don't know
Yeah.
if it was really reviewed and what was seen. It's like,
Right.
but I want to challenge it. And like, what else am I supposed to do?
Sure.
And I've asked this question for, I don't know. I just wish there was a better way that the coaches were communicated to. There's just a lot of things that went on and have gone on in other games around the Big 12. It's just bad, man. Like it really frustrates me that I care about, and a lot of people care about this stuff so much. And you have guys that are, this isn't like high school stuff, man. I'm rare to get on a high school official. Those
Same
guys
here.
are not making
These guys are
much
making
money
good
at
money.
all. These guys are making good money, man. And it's
Like
it's
yearly salary money as
And
a
in some
second job.
ways, it's stealing how
Yeah.
bad some of it is that you're just not better at what you do.
Yeah.
And it's I don't know, man. I just hate seeing it, and I think the Big 12 deserves better. So I hope that Brett Yormark, you know, that somehow they can enhance that part of their league. It's just
Yeah.
because you turn in bad calls all the time, and they tell you, yeah, we screwed these 10 up.
Yeah.
Sorry. And you just
Yeah.
move on about your way. But it's like next week, it's a whole 10 different things, or the same rule applied differently by a different crew and all those things. It's just maddening to me.
I
And
get it.
again,
I'm
I'm
with
in
you.
the basketball and football venue, and those sports are difficult to officiate. I think there's some crews that do a good job, but generally speaking, it's just not very good in this league, and it's unfortunate.
Real quick, I want to squeeze this in before we close it down. Tyson asked on an email, has there been any new development with Under Armour, Adidas tech branding? I've seen a lot of people talking like Adidas is a done deal.
And for good reason. You'll see an announcement imminent. Yeah, it's and I guess I don't really should say done deal until the announcement comes, but
Well, Patrick
yeah,
Mahomes
there's
announced
there's
it
a
on a
reason.
Twitter.
There's a
So
reason that Adidas actually had tweeted something first,
okay,
then Pat Mahomes. You've got Texas Tech retweeting all these things. The
right.
Chiefs
So
even the
yeah,
Chiefs have even snapped Pat coming into the deal with his Texas Tech, and then like the tape with
Adidas.
Adidas like shirt on it. This is all very strategic. An announcement incoming shortly.
Yeah,
Long-term agreement, and we'll see kind of what all comes with said agreement. But yeah, you're about to be part of the three stripe army. So appreciate you, Under Armour. It was a good 17 years, but it's
yeah.
that era is over.
Be a lot of closet cleanouts in Lubbock for sure over the next few months. So, well, I have more questions on that stuff, but we'll save them for next time. We've got a
Okay.
bye week coming up. Level, enjoy your bye week, get a little rest this week, and hopefully Texas Tech can do the same, get healthy, and we'll talk some TCU next time around.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Choice. Thank you for everybody out there for listening and watching and all those things. Cantex Roofing, appreciate you for sponsoring this lovely podcast. That was a good show, 54, man. Keep hope alive, people. Have a good week, man.
There we
Turn
go.
that frown upside down, and we will keep going.
Appreciate it, Level. That's Chris Level. I'm Choice Woodman. You've been tuned into the Ask Level podcast brought to you by Double T 97.3.